Hello and welcome once again. Continuing with your comments and questions. You may hear some drums and fireworks. There's continued New Year celebrations here in Sri Lanka at this time. I think today is their oil anointing day. They anoint the heads of lay practitioners at the temples with oil. I'm not sure of the origins and background of this tradition, but one of many in this continued week of events. And not sure as I remember it from last year. I was here then, but maybe I just didn't notice it as much, being still relatively new in this location. So, good. The first comment we come to, let's see, it's raining. So we're back inside. Oh, there's a little kitten somewhere near me. You mentioned there are only a few things you watch on YouTube. Can you tell us what you watch? I think it might be other Theravada monks like Nick something and others. So no, I don't really watch anything on YouTube now. On very rare occasions, if a monk, a bhikkhu, a senior monk whom I'm familiar with does put a talk in English, I might listen to it, more out of my interest for my fellow Sangha members' well-being, how they're doing, keeping up to date, where they are. And that reason alone, really. I don't think really monks generally, we're living within our Sanghas, usually, or we've chosen to be alone, apart from our Sangha. And by making that choice, we're not going to want to sit and listen to all of the activities, even back home in our own monasteries, on a daily basis or regular basis. So, yes, in the past, before I ordained, and when I was first practicing and learning about the Dharma, I would listen to Thai forest masters, senior members of the Sangha, senior monks in that tradition from different locations, and became used to a certain few, which became a selection I narrowed down and learned a lot from. But nowadays, not so much. Nowadays, I concentrate on my own practice, and I'm fortunate enough, being a monk, when I have any difficulties or questions or situations arise that I need to deal with, that I might need some assistance with, I can go to other members of the Sangha, either here in Sri Lanka, monks whom are happy to help me, or back in India, or indeed even in Thailand, or should I be there, back in England, to seek assistance. So yeah, entertainment as far as watching things for that purpose is concerned is something we don't do as monks very often. Listening to Dharma can be a good substitute for that, but I try not to make a habit of listening to Dharma just for the sake of having some sound or some visual to watch or to listen to. Only when something, which is rare because I'm not looking actively to see if something's coming up, only if something catches my attention I might listen. So yeah, I can't give you a list, I'm afraid. I think you really, and as for the one you mentioned, no, I don't know that one. So we all have a synergy with different kinds of people. We all get on with people, and our teachers should be someone we aspire to being like, and also someone that we like. We need to get on with them. So we don't all like the same kind of people, and therefore we're not going to all get on and like the same kind of teachers. Therefore one should be selective, but pick teachers that you get on with and you can understand to listen to, rather than going from someone else's recommendations. It's like choosing your friends or your partners in relationships. You wouldn't ask for someone else's list of who they'd recommend. You would select them for yourself. It's a very personal thing. Learning the Dharma, choosing a teacher, and following that teacher, ultimately becoming dependent on that teacher for your training and ordination. At which time you dispense with such options as to listening to many Dharma talks and concentrate on your own practice. I think I could live the monk life if I could be a YouTuber too. Okay, well that wouldn't be living the monk life, and I don't consider myself a YouTuber. Whatever that may be, I would think might be someone who makes a living. Nothing wrong with that, very good living, out of providing content on YouTube. Monks were prohibited from doing that. We don't make a living by providing content on YouTube, but we can use it, as I try to do, as a platform for sharing the Dharma, sharing our experiences, our experience of practicing the Dharma by offering Dharma talks or questions and answers sessions such as this. By no means to attract anything like the large audiences and viewing figures that more commercially orientated YouTube channels might attract. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, the number of subscribers here on this channel is in the sort of tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands or even millions, that such YouTuber channels might attract and have as a custom base that provide for them, by means of monetization of some kind, an income for the content provider. Now, no, monk's life is not about that. But by any means we can share the Dharma, whether it's face-to-face, verbally, whether it's in writing, but we're not allowed to, even in writing, writing books, allowed to sell these books. We're not allowed to make a living out of providing information, providing the Dharma. This is one of our Vinaya rules, and if you see or encounter any such content that is on a paid-for basis, it isn't coming from the Sangha itself. It might be coming from a subsidiary or something in addition to the Sangha, but it is not coming from ordained bhikkhus or bhikkhunis. Now, of course, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis don't use money, but they do have expenses, and you can usually make online donations towards those expenses. But other than that, YouTube channels offered by monks or nuns, bhikkhus or bhikkhunis, are not usually going to contain advertisements within their content. What goes on either side, I can't be sure. I don't watch to see. And if I do use YouTube to listen to Dharma talks, I'm fortunate enough at the moment to have something called YouTube Premium, which means that if there is any advertising, I don't get it. It just goes straight to the Dharma talk. So, but I hope you don't get anything going on like that within the content of my talks. So don't aspire to be you can aspire to be a YouTuber, or you can aspire to be a monk. The two don't normally go hand in hand. Just by chance, I've been making some talks on this platform for the last couple of years, maybe nearly a few years now. And because people are interested in hearing the Dharma that way, I've continued. But it's by no means a commercial thing. I recall a video where outdoor time channel. I recall a video where a outdoor time channel mentioned that a proper hammock is a good for camping. Really light and simple, keeps you off the ground, as well as which is necessary in colder places where sleeping on the ground can kill you. Yes, I'm sure. Now, monks don't use hammocks usually because we're used to, in our ways of practice, to being able to just sleep on the ground. And specifically, the Vinaya doesn't say prohibit using hammocks, and they can be a very good idea for people who are just outside sleeping, and as long as they're not damaging the trees that they're attaching the hammocks to, then yeah, all well and good. But really, monks don't need such things. So I'm not sure. I thought that was going to be a question, but it's not really a question, is it? So yeah, all well and good. Whatever you want to use to aid your comfort and safety when sleeping outdoors, then you should use it. I mean, I think hammocks, there's nothing really wrong with hammocks. It would probably come under the Vinaya rule of not sleeping in a luxurious and high up sleeping place, because of course they're high up, but it's hardly luxurious. Personally speaking, I've never had the need for you to use a hammock, but sleeping outside, yeah, I don't think, as long as you put some cardboard, I have slept in very cold places outside on the ground, and you put cardboard boxes that you break up, you just put that underneath, and it's a very good insulator. And that, I think, keeps you warmer than swinging about in the air at -3 or -4 or 5 degrees, because you have this layer of air between you and the ground, which actually warms up and keeps warm, because there's no airflow there. So I think that's probably just as safe. Anyway, it didn't kill me. Thank you for your Dharma talk. Right, may I ask for 8 precepts, avoid using luxurious bed? Oh, here we go again. Is my home bed considered a luxurious bed? Am I breaking the precept by using my home bed? I don't know whether your home bed is luxurious or not. The specific rule is 2 hand breadths is the maximum height for a bed stead. So the stand, the bed, a mattress might sit upon, and then perhaps not much thicker, higher than that for a mattress to go on. That's the Vinaya rule as far as a monk's little single bed, if they choose to sleep on such a thing, is concerned. As a lay practitioner, it's really not necessary. You probably have beds in your house, so it's best to make use of them, otherwise they're just taking up a lot of space unnecessarily. But in fact they are taking up the whole room, aren't they? So unless you're going to take the drastic action of getting rid of beds, then use what you've got. The 8 precepts are not morality based. They're not moral virtues. The 8 precepts are there, the additional 3 precepts are there to help support us keeping the 5 precepts. So the whole point of this reference of sleeping in a high and luxurious sleeping place is to avoid any form of luxuriating and lazing around on soft furnishings. That's the way I look at it. So even a sofa I consider to be not conducive to the practice. If you can just sit around on the floor, you're going to have to sit around however long it might be, but in a fairly upright and awake position, because it's simply not comfortable to laze around on the floor. unless you lay simply on your back when you're going to sleep, or on your side, maybe. But other than that, it's not conducive to laziness. And this is the point of that precept, which helps us with our practice, helps us support our meditation practice, our mindfulness, our alertness, and everything that goes with that. So don't worry too much about breaking this precept if you already have a comfortable bed, or whether it's luxurious or not. It isn't important. Now, I'm sure you can already use some common sense and know the difference between what is over and above the bounds of necessity when it comes to bedding. But if you've already got it, then what else is there to do with it other than use it? So carry on as normal. If you want to use the precepts on special days, the 8 precepts, then simply lay on the floor beside that bed in that 24 hours that you've determined to keep 8 precepts. What about reincarnation mentioned in Buddhist texts? So I never say there is no reincarnation. I say we use the word rebirth. And what is mentioned in the Pali Canon, Buddhist texts, so I don't know which ones you might be referring to, there are others in addition to that, but in the Pali Canon in Theravada Buddhism, the word one refers to is rebirth, which is different in the understanding in English to reincarnation. Reincarnation implies the reincarnation, the re-embodiment of a personality, of a soul, of traits, qualities, a being in itself, into a new form, whether it be in the animal realm, the human realm, or the heavenly realms, or the hell realms. Reincarnation is not that. If that's mentioned elsewhere in other Buddhist texts, I don't know anything about that. In the Pali Canon, we refer to rebirth, which is not a self. It is the rebirth of conscious awareness, the citta, the mind, but as a result of causes and conditions, into a realm, depending on those causes and conditions put in place. But you're not taking rebirth of the same being, personality, soul, for instance. It is the opportunity for a life again to be known and to be experienced by the citta. It may have had inherited, as a result of karma, good or bad, qualities or defilements, good qualities or bad qualities, that it brings along with it through its past actions. Other than that, there's no trace of what lived before in a previous life. So we don't have reincarnation, no. I'm going to put my glasses on for this. It's rather long. I should have highlighted it if it was a question. In Buddhist cosmology, for example, there are hell, the realm of the dead, the human realm, and the realm of gods. It is impossible for an ordinary person to travel from one realm to another. In particular, it is absolutely impossible for ghosts from the dead to come to the human being from the human realm, and it is impossible for ordinary person from the human realm to go to God from the divine realm. Why are humans from the human realm afraid of ghosts from the dead and unable to travel between realms? I think what you're saying there is an explanation as to why you believe ghosts cannot come from other realms into the human realm, or vice versa, and therefore why are humans scared of such things? So, avidya, ignorance, it doesn't mean stupidity, it just means a lack of understanding. So, this is why people fear ghosts. Ghosts are not going to harm you, do anything bad if there is such a thing. If it's an irrational fear brought about through blind belief, stories and fairy tales, then it is, just as a result of ignorance. That's why people fear such things. This is your question. As to your explanation, we don't go from one realm to the other. Perhaps in deep levels of attainment, an arahant, a Buddha, can experience or even communicate with those of other realms. But we cannot know that, and the Buddha says, as one of the four achintaya, the questions we shouldn't try to trouble ourselves with, as to investigating the powers of a Buddha, such as that, recording past lives or talking to devas in the heavenly realms. Don't try and get your mind around that, your brain around that, the intellectual thinking brain, which is limited to some extent in its capacity for understanding of what it cannot experience. Understandably, because if you cannot experience something, it is just blind belief. So don't try and calculate, work out what's coming from blind belief. It's better and more important to try and understand what you can actually experience, see, hear, smell, taste, touch and think about. So if you're not seeing a ghost in front of you who is physically able and threatening to hurt you, why fear such a thing? It probably doesn't exist, and it is delusion, the third of the hindrance, the third of the defilements, kilesas, that causes us to have such irrational fears. Because there isn't anyone that you can speak to that has had that occasion, that encounter with an actual ghost who is physically able to cause them harm and prepared to do so or threatening to do so, and come back to tell the tale of such an event. Not that I know of anyway, and if I was to hear such a story, I would ask that they provide some form of evidence to this situation before I took it too seriously, not rejecting their experience, because it could be any manner of phenomena that's very real to them and important to be given that consideration and respect. But I wouldn't let it trouble me, for instance, unless it was happening to me and I was of concern. But even then, my attitude will be, well, I get old, get sick and die anyway. What can possibly go wrong? I'll be reborn into this realm. At the very best, I can be hoped to be born into the human realm again, to have the opportunity to practice the Dharma and avoid rebirth in the future. But it's not something you should worry about or trying to understand. Even though, looking at the length of the comment there, it's taken a lot of thinking to come up with that. Why? What's the point? Does it matter? Maybe people are running around scared of ghosts and superstitions and all kinds of things. It's really, have compassion for them, because it's out of their own delusion. They haven't seen the light yet. They haven't realized that what we're experiencing here is all there is in the present moment, here and now, and will not be changed until we die and are reborn into one of those realms. But we cannot know that either. So let's just concentrate on what we're doing now to ensure that whatever happens after our death, if anything at all, it's something positive. In the meantime, what happens within this lifetime will all be positive if you do positive things. The whole purpose is to believe. Oh, here we go. How can you have faith in something that is proven? The same way as I cannot have faith in something that is not proven, because it will be blind faith. So I can have immense confidence, and that's the word I use, confidence, rather than faith usually. Faith means to me confidence. It doesn't mean belief. Belief means belief. Belief that something happens that is unproven. There's nothing to be believed that's necessary to be believed. But what we can experience, you can have confidence in as being the truth. What we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and even how we're thinking about that happening in the present moment, here and now, doesn't need to be believed. We're experiencing it. If we break it down into its constituent parts as to what makes up that experience, from sense consciousness to feelings to recollection, to mental formations, we get an overall experience that is just that. So you say the whole purpose is to believe. Why is it? Who says so? Someone who wants to be believed about something that they cannot prove. It is better to look towards the truth, that is proved, as being your guidance. Proven what? So in Buddhism, the three characteristics of existence are in themselves proven. Anicca, impermanent; dukkha, suffering; anatta, not self, or outside of our own personal control. These three characteristics of existence apply to all conditioned things. Everything we experience, as I was just describing, is of the nature that it is impermanent. Nothing is permanent. Even the universe is impermanent. It may go on for a long time, it may have been here for a long time. But as we know from modern science and our studies of cosmology, which are proven, it is not permanent. The sun even is not permanent. The Himalaya mountains are changing continuously. Buildings are not permanent. A flower, very impermanent. It might last a day when put in a vase on an altar. Our body is impermanent. Everything is unsatisfactory by that very nature of its impermanence, but also that sometimes with some things we like, we cannot get enough of, and things we don't like, we don't want. This is suffering. In itself is proof of its own description. And can you control this physical body of yours? Can you even control your thinking brain? No, you cannot. So it is not self. That is what's proven. Contrary to where your comment is coming from in that Bible, what's being said with regards to believing in stories of a miraculous nature, those that might be contained in such scriptures as the Bible. Believing in a God, a creator God, in Adam and Eve, in the Garden of Eden. Believing in Beelzebub, the devil, God, St. Peter, and so on and so forth. This is all hearsay and has to be believed and cannot be proven. Oh, but yes, you might say, if Jesus walked on water and turned water into wine and said all these things as the Son of God and who gave his only Son to save us all from suffering, then once again it's just words written down and repeated time and time and time again. And I hear so many times quotes from the Bible, literally verbatim, even with the little numbers, thrown at me by way of some kind of evidence, which they are not. They're not proof. It's just, well, so-and-so said this, so it must be true. That's like believing in a tabloid newspaper headline. Oh, it's in the newspaper, so it must be true. Oh, it's online, it must be true. It's on YouTube, it must be true. Do you think that? No. You check it out yourself and find out and get to the bottom. If someone on YouTube says you should buy this product, do you go and buy this product? No, you check a lot of other products against that product, do your research, test them out, get proof that this is what you need, and you purchase that one. You don't believe what's being said. You work it out and experience it for yourself. And this is all Buddhism does. Asks us to experience it for ourselves, try it out, and if it works, use it. If it doesn't, then what have you lost? You've done no harm either to yourself or to others in the course of your research, which needn't take very long. If you want to then choose to walk away from what you've seen, evidentially, and live in a land of make-believe, you can do that with the fairies and the gods and the heavens and the things which do exist also in Buddhist cosmology, as was explained by someone just a moment ago. But they're optional extras as far as believing is concerned, and are believing if you haven't experienced them yourselves. But you can, in jhana, recall past lives. You can, in jhana, experience heavenly realms. But only when you've experienced them for yourselves do you know that you understand them and you can have faith, confidence in them. But you shouldn't, even by experiencing them yourselves, unless you're a fully enlightened Buddha, and even then, in that case, one might choose to keep quiet, in which case you're called a Pacceka Buddha. But unless you're fully enlightened, a Buddha, a Sammasambuddha, you would not share that experience with others, because it would just be confusing. You'd be asking others to believe you. And unless you're a perfectly enlightened Buddha, a Sammasambuddha, therefore the only Buddha, and therefore the one people are taking refuge in, providing the Dharma, the only Dharma, from which originates the Sangha, the triple gem overall, then you wouldn't be giving others the benefit of your experience, because they would have to have the benefit of doubt in that it's hearsay. But if you've established this fact yourself, as the Sammasambuddha Siddhartha Gautama did, to some extent this Buddhist cosmology he shares. Especially as he's sharing in the first instance the Dharma, turning the wheel of Dharma in the first instance there, amongst people who have very strong cultural beliefs and a security and a necessity in those beliefs. Much like with other religious prophets, even where their teachings are contrary to their cultural surroundings, they'll pick up certain aspects of it for inclusion in order to be all-inclusive and help people understand, even in an allegory nature. Right. More about sleeping positions and do I use a pillow? No, I don't use a pillow. My Sangati, which is usually folded, as I hardly ever wear it, I just rest my head on that. And my lying position, I usually just lay on my back or on one side. You don't tend to roll about much when you're sleeping on the concrete floor. I think I've given enough insight talk about sleeping on the floor in other videos without having to go into any more detail there. You also say, how do I get over or compensate the next day for a restless night's sleep? I don't have a restless night's sleep because I only sleep for maximum to the maximum 6 hours, and it's rarely restless. If I'm unable to sleep for one reason or another, sickness or surrounding conditions might be a problem wherever I happen to be staying, then I use the opportunity to sit up for the night and practice meditation, and find that's just as restorative. As far as compensating for that during the day, I'm not having to go to work or really tax myself during my day. And I can take a rest if I'm tired, but that's rarely the case. And the meditative life, the life of a monk, is fairly... you do need to be physically fit and capable and able to manage it. But when you've practiced in it and trained, it's fairly sedentary. It's not overly active and doesn't require so much physical energy as it does mental determination, mental energy, which you can get from meditation, more so probably than sleep. I've really thought about just up and leaving everything behind for a while to find some inner peace, but I don't think these monasteries exist in Ohio. Okay, well I wouldn't know. You can Google your nearest temple, monastery, or meditation centre. There are usually meditation centres of some kind. Vipassana they might be called, or insight meditation centres, in most areas and parts of the world these days, not too far away to get to anyway. Now, it may not be that they're practicing like monks in temples or even practicing the same meditation as you, but they are usually good environments regardless to visit and go on retreats to, because they're conducive to whatever you're practicing, as long as they're not too intrusive, as long as they're not too doctrinal and imposing a method, a tradition, a standard. If you can just go and practice noble silence with Kalyanamita, beautiful friends or friends on the path, if you can go and practice many hours of meditation in the day with your meals provided for you, maybe doing a little service, a little work to support that activity, and be away from society, that's good enough. So you can do that, whether there are temples near you or not. In fact, for lay practitioners, those environments are often more appropriate and better for you to go and practice. As lay practitioners going to stay in a temple or a monastery, you might find yourself, as I did for many years, doing just a lot of work, because the monks are not allowed to do a certain amount of things. There's still, in big communities, a lot of work to be done, and you'll have a lot of chores and perhaps not so much time for meditation. Here in Sri Lanka, I mean, people have commented that visited me here, having visited temples here, and said, apart from a very few select forest monasteries that there are in Sri Lanka, most of them, when they've gone there, there is even no physical place to meditate. Other than, of course, if you're staying, your room where you're staying. You might have a lot of bells and whistles, drums going on in the background. Some unusual sounding chanting going on in the background, a lot of chitter-chatter. But we learn through this practice that this peace you're talking about, upping and leaving everything behind, isn't how we find inner peace. Inner peace is something we have as a quality wherever we are. And if you don't have it, it doesn't matter if you go into a sensory deprivation chamber in the middle of nowhere. Your lack of inner peace will follow you. The noise, the inner turmoil, the inner restlessness, the 5 hindrances, sensual desire, ill will, laziness, restlessness and worry and doubt will follow you into that sensory deprivation chamber in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't matter how well supported you are in a meditation center or in staying in a temple. Even if you ordain as a monk and you're in a forest, perfect seemingly forest monastery, your inner turmoil will go with you. So we develop inner peace through the practice of sila, keeping precepts, as I spoke of yesterday. Through practicing meditation every day. This is how we develop wholesome mind states, reduce and ultimately eradicate unwholesome mind states. Then we have inner peace wherever we are. We've no need to go anywhere, to any temple, even if you're living on a busy bus route. When I first came here to Sri Lanka, the kuti I was in, if you look at the videos, you could barely hear me speak if a bus went by. Now, I know we have the trains very occasionally here. There's only about, at the most, half a dozen, I think, in 24 hours. I don't notice any of them now. But they seem quite infrequent, but they're quite loud. But the buses, back where I was staying, were probably every 10 minutes, continuously, day and night. And I was still able to practice, still able to meditate. It wasn't what caused me to move. In fact, the problem mainly was when people did come to visit me there, or I was talking like this, they weren't able to hear me, I wasn't able to hear them. The noise itself didn't bother me in my practice because it's just sound. The ear's hearing sound, that's it. It's phenomena. As long as it's external and you're picking it up, you're recognizing it. You don't need then to make mental formations about it. You don't need to have feelings about it of liking or disliking. It's nondescript. It's the ear's hearing sound, recognizing what that sound is, knowing there's nothing to be done about it, and letting it be, letting it go. There is your inner peace, wherever you are. But I did fortunately move, because I was having to go and make these talks on the beach, if you remember. And that's okay, certain times of day and out of season. But, you know, if tourists start coming along, it's not an appropriate place necessarily for a monk to be, especially if giving a Dharma talk. So I was always looking for something more suitable. And I was fortunate enough to be offered this place, which, as you can tell, 99.9% of the time is very peaceful and quiet. Occasionally you might hear some little background noises. I can never quite determine what they are or where they're coming from. It's the way the wind blows, I suppose. But other than the train and the occasional passing tuk-tuk, it's a very peaceful, quiet place. Nature plays its part in that. Big peacocks will land on the roof, big monkeys. They're quite big, the monkeys here. They crash around. We've just had this amazing bird that goes, you've heard it on the videos. Here comes the train, speaking of which. You've probably heard it on the video. Someone commented about it. And I'm not going to try and impersonate it, but it's a sound that's very recognizable in Asia, a very distinctive. They describe it as a kind of cuckoo bird, but it's not like a cuckoo, it's more of a squawking sound, but not unpleasant. And reading up on their New Year traditions, have come to know this as the New Year, Sinhalese New Year bird. I don't remember its proper name, a koha, I think, koha, K-O-H-A or something, bird. Like a blackbird we have in England with a yellow beak. Although some of them are of the more mottled brown fleckled colour. Maybe that's the boy and the girl. But anyway, they make this particular noise, sound, song, squawk, only at this time of year, the Sinhalese and Tamil New Year. So next time I hear that next year, I'll know it is the New Year. And lo and behold, it really did peak at around the 13th and 14th of this month, that sound. It was actually noticed on these talks, someone commented on it, how do you put up with that bird? And again, I don't need to put up with it, it's there, it's the sounds of nature, like rain on a tin roof. I'm fortunate here I have a slate tiled roof, but in the last rains retreat in India, which is now 2 years ago, I was in a room, remember, Kuti, with a tin roof. And when it rained there, although it didn't much in that area at the time, it was so loud you wouldn't hear me speak at all. But you get used to just sound being sound. That, by the way, wasn't the bird that I was referring to, if you heard that. I'm hoping I'll get one of my little miracles and it will queue up and make it sound now, but it's not going to, is it? If you believe that, you'll believe anything. There we go, belief. I'm thinking there are various reasons for becoming a monk. Denying yourself many aspects of purely human behaviour on the hope of rebirth is like any religious pursuit of being good in this life to improve your situation in the next. No, that would be considered wrong view, not right view. The reason for becoming a monk is to just be able to practice, not denying ourselves of various human behaviours in any respect, really. Renunciation isn't about denying what we want to do, it's about accepting what we don't need to do and accepting that there is contentment in having the simplicity of just what we need rather than what we want as a result of greed, hatred and delusion. And this is where becoming a monk assists us by being supported as we are as monks, because we couldn't do it without the support of lay people, lay practitioners. Lay practitioners, lay men and lay women need monks and nuns to help them with their practice and their living ordinary lives, as do monks need the support of lay men and lay women practitioners to help them with their bare necessities, their requisites of food, shelter, clothing and medicine. That's all we ask of the lay people, little support in that respect, and all they ask for us is to share the Dharma with them. But that mutual interdependent support is essential for the Buddhist religion as it is, the Buddha Sasana, to exist. So it isn't like other religions in that sense, which are requiring a belief in a hierarchical structure, whether it be here within the body of their religious teachers or in a heavenly situation of a god or a hell-like devil-like demon. There is this whole doctrinal belief situation and sin and punishment and forgiveness in other religions. In Buddhism, there is not. There is just the real need not to do harm, but to be kind to others, as well as not to do harm to ourselves and to be kind to ourselves, and to set a good example to others. And that will result in a better life within this life. If it leads to future rebirth into a good realm of the heavenly realms or the human realm where you can continue their practice, your practice, all well and good. But that isn't the purpose or the aim of it. The purpose of being good in Buddhism is to be good in the present moment, here and now, to ourselves and all that we encounter. To be harmless and to make as little footprint or impression even, unless positive, through acts of generosity and kindness as we can whilst living in this world. So it's not just a case of I must deny myself all of these pleasures so that I can go to heaven. No, there is no basis for that. That is not truth. That is a belief. We practice renunciation because we enjoy renunciation. We get pleasure from renunciation. I get immense pleasure in knowing that all I need is provided for me. I have here each and every day, and it is very little. And that is contentment in itself. To be content with little means you are happy. Happiness is the symptom of being content, and therefore you're relieved of suffering within this lifetime. Now, if you can further go towards cutting off at the roots those fetters, those kilesas rather, of greed, hatred and delusion, the defilements, then you will not experience, there will be no further rebirth into samsara, and one will be free from suffering in this lifetime and attain to nibbana. That is the purpose of becoming a monk. You can, however, do all of this in lay life, but it is better supported because you can put 100% of your time into the practice if you are a monk or a nun. So on that note, I hope it's useful. If it is, please use it. If not, just forget about it, put it down, but please come back again and watch next time. Until then, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.